What's going on, and welcome to the NBA DFS Q&A show. My name is Tom Vecchio. I'll be here for the next 30 minutes taking your questions about tonight's NBA DFS slate. We have 11 games. There's a lot to get to. As always, this show is every Wednesday. You can find it on the FanDuel, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook pages. You can follow me on Twitter at DFS_Tom. There's a lot of news, injury news to get to. We already have some questions in there. Let's hop right in. Starting off with Born to Laugh, start Juan Hernangomez over Wenyen Gabriel. So the news, at least, let's just preface this by the news that LeBron James was recently ruled out for the Lakers. This means that their offensive lineup is going to be changed, which means there's obviously going to be extra offensive usage to go around. Realistically, this lineup isn't that good. Westbrook is a fine option, I guess, because LeBron's not going to be there. We're talking about players that are essentially the same. If we're choosing between these two, and it comes down to Hernangomez or Gabriel, I would side with Gabriel simply due to the fact that this game has a higher over-under. It's not by much. 11 points is a good enough margin, but I just don't like this defensive matchup against the Celtics. We do know that they're very solid. So I would side with Wenyen Gabriel for the Lakers. As I said on the podcast today, the Daily Ice, so there's basically 3 games on tonight's slate that I have almost no interest in, which would be Golden State, Miami, Utah, Boston, and Orlando, OKC. And I say that in the grand scheme of things, comparing it to some of the other games on the slate, when we're dealing with over-unders that are 238 super high, 237 for the Brooklyn Nets and Memphis Grizzlies. Well, this game's down at 209. This over-under is almost 30 points higher. So I certainly want to be staying away from too many of the options in those 3 games specifically. So I would side with Wenyen Gabriel for that one. Born to Laugh is also asking any 3x2s I like. This is, of course, one of the bets on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Will there be 2+ made threes in the first 3 minutes? One of them would be the Rockets and the Mavs. It has a little bit of juice on it, -138, but we do see Houston in the bottom 10 of the league for the most 3-pointers allowed per game. We do see the Mavs as the best team in the league for the fewest 3-pointers allowed per game. But if we actually look on the other side, Dallas and Houston are both in the top 12 for the most 3-pointers made. So Dallas is still going to give up some 3-pointers. At least we have 2 teams that can competently hit them. So I would look towards Rockets and Mavericks. Again, that has a little bit of juice. Suns, T-Wolves, I think, is a good spot to look to as well. We see Minnesota in the bottom 10 for the most allowed per game. They're also making a ton per game. Always good to see a little bit of plus money there. And then I would look to probably the Nets and the Grizzlies. -106 for that. Obviously, plenty of shooters in that game. So those would probably be my top 3. I'd maybe put Spurs Blazers as the 4th option. I do like the Rockets and the Mavericks number 1 overall, but the -138 juice might be a little bit much for some people. Next up is the 6th-man question, the classic Wednesday question, which is who's that player that comes off the bench for a given team that has that scoring upside that may not be immensely popular. Bogdanović had a huge game last night. Realistically, he's probably in a similar spot tonight just because we also see the Hawks lineup thinned out a little bit. They're missing some players, so he's always an option. Kelly Oubre always has 3-point upside in a great game environment going up against the Knicks. The injury situation for the Pacers, I want to say we're waiting on a little bit because Tyrese Halliburton is listed as questionable. So we could be looking at some of the bench players for the Pacers now, but ultimately they could become starters. I would certainly side with Dante DiVincenzo as a 6th-man option for the Kings. You could always look to DeAnthony Melton for the Grizzlies. Again, not super interesting going to Jordan Clarkson or Tyler Hero, who are normally very, very strong candidates for that just due to their game environments. And then probably Malik Beasley. This game is a super high over-under with a close spread. Absolutely liking that option. Grim on YouTube's asking Matisse Thybulle, Royce O'Neal, or Reggie Bullock. So Royce O'Neal certainly falls last on that order. Between Matisse Thybulle and Reggie Bullock, it's kind of a toss-up. If LeBron was playing, I would almost like Thybulle a little bit more just because at least there's a hope the Lakers can kind of keep that game close. This reopened with, a 9.5-point spread now or 10.5 points? It's 9.5-point spread. It was 7.5 a little bit earlier. So I might take Reggie Bullock in that matchup just because it's so easy for him going up against the Rockets again. Reggie Bullock sits out in the corner and just takes threes constantly for the Mavericks. Look at this, 11 3-pointers, all 11 of his field goal attempts were 3-pointers, and he's seeing a very, very high percentage of his overall shots come from 3-point range. So because the Rockets allow so many 3-pointers, Reggie Bullock is a player that could really reach value tonight. So I like Bullock. I also like Monty Steibel. Again, this is also a player that picks up the steals and the blocks, immense fantasy upside on a point per dollar basis from Monty Steibel. So I would go Bullock, Steibel, O'Neal in that order. Grim is also asking, take Sacramento on the spread. Their spread is 4.5. The Pacers do have, they're without Malcolm Brogdon. He's already been ruled out. Halliburton is listed as questionable. He's listed as questionable. Sacramento, we know they're missing De'Aaron Fox. We know they're missing Sabonis. It's not the worst bet in the world. In the grand scheme of things, these are two teams that are essentially the same. They're just kind of like two bad defensive teams. So almost either one can win it. And if Halliburton gets ruled out, I assume the line would shift a little bit. So at 4.5, I wouldn't mind the Kings. I have a little bit of interest in the Pistons at 4.5. They've covered 14 out of their past 15 games, and they're at home against the Hawks. The Hawks are on the second night of a back-to-back, and the Hawks are missing a few players out of their lineup and their rotation. Grim is also asking Cole Anthony over Pat Beverly. The matchup for Cole Anthony is obviously very easy going up against OKC. This game environment, again, not my favorite. It is the best out of these bottom three that I would say. Utah, Boston, 216. This is 221, so it's still certainly usable to a 2-point spread. Golden State, Miami. I know Golden State's super shorthanded, so I'm not really going there. So I guess this game is viable with Cole Anthony. This game environment is no doubt better for Minnesota and Pat Beverly. The issue with Pat Beverly he's not a massively high usage player, and he's also not a big pure scorer. So I would choose Cole Anthony, hoping to be a little bit different in tournaments. Chris is saying on Facebook, is saying the Suns going to do it this year. Certainly looking good right now, and they don't have Chris Paul. That's always a strong indication for them. Saban on YouTube is asking best games to target. There's a number of them. Like I said, there's basically three that I don't have a whole lot of interest in. I know Houston and Dallas has a lower over-under, but we're going to be seeing Spencer Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson be very popular for Dallas. A, it's an easy matchup, and B, there's no Luka Doncic. So we're still targeting players from Dallas just due to different circumstances. So outside of that, Phoenix and Minnesota with a huge over-under and a 1-point spread is fantastic. Same thing for Brooklyn and Memphis. You absolutely can be looking there. I love that game. Also, very high over-under, close spread, and no defense being played between either of those two teams. You could certainly look to the Knicks, who are in a massive pace-up spot. They're 27th in the league. We see Charlotte playing up at 3. So Knicks, Charlotte, Sacramento, Indiana, Brooklyn, Memphis, Phoenix, Minnesota, going to some of the Dallas options, and then San Antonio and Portland. Don't forget about this game. These two teams are very close in the standings. They don't play defense, et cetera, et cetera. DJ is asking, take the Jazz on the spread. I don't know if that's for me. Boston looks really good right now. They are looking super strong. They're coming back home after a long road trip where they won all 4 or 5 of their games on their road trip, whatever it was. Boston's a tough team to bet against. So that's not a spot I would be going for them. I'll roll that right into Savannah's asking favorite FanDuel bets of the day. So the bets that I made, I got the Nets a little bit earlier. It was 1.5 earlier. It's 1 now. So I'm on the Nets 1.5. I'm on Kyrie over 25.5 or 26 points, whatever it is, over 26.5. Obviously, this is a winnable game for the Nets. They're going up against Memphis, who have no John Morant. Memphis is still a very good team, even without Morant. They won a number of games earlier in the year when he was out. I just think that Kyrie has to make it known that he's still a member of a valuable member of the team, because this is an away game. He's obviously going to be playing in only these, not home games. So this is his time to shine in a winnable matchup. And the Nets are looking good. They've won 6 out of their past 7. So I like the Nets. I like Kyrie over 26.5. I also took who was it? I took Jalen Brunson over 30.5 PRA. Dinwiddie was a little bit higher, so I took Brunson, who's a little bit lower, right? Brunson, over 30.5. Dinwiddie was a little bit higher, so I took the over on Jalen Brunson, PRA, over on Kyrie points, and the Nets -1.5. Who would you take, Corey Joseph or Chris Duarte? DJ on Facebook is asking. I would certainly lean towards Duarte right now, especially if we do see Tyrese Halliburton ruled out. We already have Malcolm Brogdon ruled out, so that's certainly a plus for Chris Duarte. Easy matchup against the Kings, pace-up spot, high over-under. Not saying that it isn't a good matchup for Corey Joseph. I just like the potential of extra offensive usage for Duarte ahead of Corey Joseph, who really isn't the highest usage player. when it comes to the Pistons offense. 10% usage rate, half a FanDuel point per minute. He is dead last in usage among their starting five. I'll take Chris Duarte with definitely no Malcolm Brogdon. He's already ruled that. And then potentially no Tyrese Haliburton, who's listed as questionable. So yeah, that's where I would look for that. You didn't see the spread for the Nets game, whatever it might be. Get some clarity. The Jazz game, it's 5 points. The Celtics are looking too good to go against them right now. That's not my favorite spot to go. Savon is asking the best value. There are a number of value plays on tonight's slate. I'll certainly be looking to some of the options from Dallas. They're not super deep values, whether it be Dinwiddie, whether it be Jalen Brunson, $5,300. I know a lot of people are probably going to be going to Tyus Jones at $4,300. Ja Morant is out. Him sliding into the starting lineup as he did the other day in their most recent start is very, very clear. You can be going there. I like Davion Mitchell tonight as well, $4,600 for the Sacramento Kings. De'Aaron Fox is listed as doubtful. He's going to be stepping into the starting lineup. Great matchup against the Pacers. The issue here ultimately is that they're both only listed as point guards, and I certainly want to get up to Kyrie Irving and DeJounte Murray. Luckily, we do have dual position eligibility for both of them. So when you're setting your lineups, make sure that you do have Irving and Murray set to shooting guard. And if you're using an optimizer, have them set to shooting guard eligibility so you can roster Jones and Mitchell. Because if you roster Irving and Murray at point guard, then you can't roster Jones and Mitchell at shooting guard. So that is there. Boston barely in the playoffs. Boston's looking great right now, not a spot that I'm going to be going against. It is Kyrie's birthday, Dre on Facebook is saying. So yes, we have the birthday narrative in play. If you want to be going to Kyrie because of the birthday narrative, it's always fun. Birthday narrative, baby narrative, hometown, revenge narrative, whatever you want to add into play, combined with the fact that, again, as I said, like Kyrie's got to kind of put up the points now because this is an away game for them in Memphis. Again, winnable matchup with no Ja Morant. So I do like Kyrie tonight, not because it's his birthday. It's always fun to add that in. But I will be going to Kyrie, like I said, the over 26.5. There are two NBA boosts. Would you take, remember that? Yeah. Boosts are over here. So Kevin Durant and Kyrie to score 60-plus points combined. And Tatum to score 30-plus points and Marcus Smart to make 2+ threes. Okay. I would have more faith in the Irving Durant one, and obviously doesn't have as much value as that one. I would say it comes down to Marcus Smart. How many threes is he taking per game? 5, 5, 7, 4, 3. The threes are what would bother me for that bet, for that boost. I would have much more faith in Durant and Kyrie combining for the 60-plus points against Memphis. I mean, this game is a massive over-under, so that's where I'd be going. The threes with Marcus Smart is a little bit more concerning. I would have plenty of faith in the 30-plus points from Tatum. He's been on fire as of late, so that's where I would certainly be going. Could you be Grim is asking, start Clint Capella for the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, a good matchup for them going up against the Pistons. This matchup, at center, I think is an okay spot to be going if you want to differentiate. Joel Embiid at $11,000 is certainly always a good play, but with no LeBron, I think it lowers Embiid's ceiling overall, right? If we're looking at the blowout factor, which is certainly very real for Philly tonight with no LeBron. Listen, even when LeBron is in there, they're losing by 15, 20 points sometimes. So Joel Embiid, I don't think is as much of a priority tonight. So dropping into the mid-tier is certainly an option. And Clint Capella would be a spot that I'd be going. I like DeAndre Ayton tonight at $7,200. Clint Capella would probably be next. I also have, I would say, slightly more interest in Jakob Poeltl over Clint Capella because the matchup for Jakob Poeltl against Portland is very, very strong. So in that mid-tier at center, I would go to Jakob Poeltl or Ayton ahead of Capella. Not saying Capella's a bad choice, but liking a few options ahead of him. Who's going to be MVP? Joker, KD, Giannis, or LeBron? Well, it's not going to be LeBron. It's probably going to come down to Jokic, Embiid, or Giannis. I don't have a future on anyone. I don't have any NBA futures as of now. So that's, future bets NBA is, especially for MVP, it can be very, very close for some of these players. Let's get an update on these injuries. There's none. So the situation for the Warriors tonight is another one I think that's worth mentioning. Super low over-under in this game, right? That's the main thing against Miami. Super low over-under. Miami's a good defensive team. It's just that we should be seeing so many minutes for some of these players because they have, a number of players ruled out. They're on the second night of a back-to-back. So the usage should be there for Jordan Poole. The usage should be there for Andrew Wiggins. Is this a spot that you have to go? Do you want to be going here? The 209 over-under. Frankly, I don't think it's a priority to get to these players from the Warriors who are in this lower over-under game, despite what could be a strong minutes projection from some of them. So Jordan Poole, I think, is fine. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think he's going to be super popular at point guard tonight or shooting guard just because there are so many other strong options around him. So I'm fine with a few Warriors players or one or two, but that's not a spot that I would be going super, super heavy. Savan on YouTube is asking, who would you stack from the Kings and Pacers game? So this game is obviously expected to have a ton of points, 234.5 over under 4.5 point spread. Two teams that don't play a whole lot of defense. Davion Mitchell, as you see here, is one of my favorite value plays on the slate, stepping into the starting lineup because De'Aaron Fox is out. For the Pacers, if Halliburton is ruled out, who's listed as questionable right now, I think Chris Duarte is a great option. This is a revenge game, for Buddy Hield going up against his former team. The extra usage could be there for him if Halliburton is out, but we also could be seeing, theoretically, we could be seeing Dwayne Washington into the starting lineup. If Halliburton is ruled out, that's a very, very big if. Washington is not a player I would look to otherwise. So I would certainly look to Halliburton if he plays, Buddy Hield, Chris Duarte, Mitchell, probably then Damian Jones for the Kings. Yeah, LeBron, that era is over, but yeah, Embiid is looking great this year. So that is always a spot that you have to be considering. Realistically, if Embiid were to win it, I'm not going to be shocked. If Jokic wins it, I'm also not going to be shocked. If Giannis, puts up a strong last month or so to close out the season, he's going to be in the conversation. I don't think there's a clear-cut winner. It's kind of like a coin flip scenario. Do you like anyone from the New York-Charlotte game? Absolutely. We always have fancy upside from teams going up against Charlotte because A, they don't play defense, and B, they are the third fastest team in the league. The Knicks are sitting at 27. So I've spoken about RJ Barrett a number of times. When he has this type of shot volume, 20 plus essentially on a nightly basis, his scoring ceiling is going to be immense. Last night, he posted 51 FanDuel points, and he shot 9 of 25 from the field. Now, as I said on the podcast this morning, 9 of 25 from the field is kind of average to bad, right? That's a pretty mediocre shooting performance, and he still had 51 FanDuel points. Now, he did have 13 assists, which is a lot for him, but that shooting volume, if that's going to stay there, which it is at 20 plus, that's always going to grant him a high ceiling, not to mention the fact that he shoots a ton of threes. Now, he's been a bit variable when it comes to these three-pointers, which is very clear. 1 of 7, he's 4 of 8, he's 5 of 11, he's 1 of 6, et cetera, et cetera. But the scoring upside is always going to be there for RJ Barrett. So I love him in this matchup tonight against the Hornets, who also allow the second most three-pointers per game. So a big pace-up spot, high over-under, no defense, plenty of shot volume for RJ Barrett. You can be looking there. Alec Burks is also a solid mid-tier play. He's not super expensive. Obi Toppin got the start last night because Randall was ruled out. Randall is listed as doubtful for this game, so we should expect Obi Toppin in the starting lineup again. And then LaMelo Ball always has double-double, triple-double potential to fill up the stat sheet, so he's always a viable option. So there's plenty of players from the Knicks and the Hornets game should have a nice back-and-forth game environment. Can the Knicks upset Charlotte tonight and hit the spread, or no? The spread is 8. Yeah. Charlotte, they've won. Charlotte, they've won what, 5 in a row, right? 4 in a row, 5 in a row for Charlotte. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. They've won 5 in a row. So they've won 5 in a row. They've covered in 4 of their past 5. At a certain point, in the grand scheme of things, Charlotte is a pretty average team. They're barely above 500. So they're bound to lose a game at a certain point. And, coming off a couple wins, I think the Knicks could cover tonight. They're well coached. They are in a bounce back spot, big pace up. It's not like Charlotte's a defensive team you're worried about. right? It's not like we're worried about Charlotte's defense and like shutting down the Knicks. Like this is a spot that the Knicks could easily win against Charlotte. So I would look to them on the spread at +8. Like I said, I also like the Pistons at home +4.5. They've covered 14 out of their last 15 games. Detroit has. Lot are 14 out of 15 or 14 out of 16, whatever it is, but they are covering all of these games, which is great to see. They've kind of, stepped things up the second half of the season. So I would certainly like the Knicks tonight. Savannah's asking, how would you prioritize the power forward and center spots tonight with Kyrie and Murray being together in the lineup? So it comes down to where you are getting Kyrie and Murray in the lineup. Like I said, I like them at shooting guard tonight. This is simply just due to the ease of roster construction when you're trying to get in some clear value plays at point guard with Jones because Morant is out and Mitchell because Fox is out. So getting to Irving and Murray is certainly viable. 6,000 left. You could look for some value if you want to be getting some value options in there. Obviously, Wenyen Gabriel has jumped up to the top of the value chart since the news that LeBron has been ruled out. I like Dorian Finney-Smith. I like some of the options on Dallas. Like I said, I spoke about Reggie Bullock before. He's certainly an option you can be going to. Dwight Powell isn't the biggest scorer in the world, but he does have a very, very soft matchup going up against Houston, who are dead last in the league against centers. So you can be going there for value at the power forward position. Also looking to some of the options for either Sacramento or Indiana at the power forward / center position. Both of those are in play. I think realistically falling into the mid-tier at center is where I want to go. Like I said, I mentioned Ayton. I like Jakob Poeltl tonight. Easy matchup going up against the Portland Trailblazers. So we're not working with like stretching the lineup at all. You could still spend down at power forward. If you wanted to get Trey Lyles in there, that's fine. Taking a bit of value in a good matchup against Indiana. 6,400 for a few players left is certainly an easy spot to go. Favorite pay-up options that are under the radar? Is Durant going to be under the radar? Tatum would be like the ideal under the radar call because he's in this lower scoring environment and he's still a player that can go for 50 plus points. So it might be Tatum again, because you're playing the game that no one's super interested in this game environment of 216 when you can go to games that have over-unders that are legitimately 20 points higher. So if Tatum is going to be the player to go a bit overlooked, he would probably be the best because he obviously has a massive ceiling. So that would probably be the player I would go to at 9,400. Like you are going out of your way to be different in tournaments because you're expecting Tatum to still put up 50, but he's also not going to be popular. Just due to that game environment, 216 compared to some of these games that are up in the high 230s. DJ's asking, take Bruce Brown or save with Buddy Hield and get more expensive guard like Cade Cunningham. Take Bruce Brown or save with Buddy. I'll get expensive. So I love Bruce Brown. I spoke about him on the podcast, not just him specifically, but a player that's around his salary that's in a game environment such as this one. So we're dealing with a super high over-under close spread, which you can say about a number of games tonight, right? Like that's what we're ultimately looking at. Brown is 6,700, and he's filling up the stat sheet in a variety of ways. He's doing some scoring. He's grabbing some rebounds and assists. He's always been good at stealing the ball. And because this game environment is so strong back and forth with so many possessions, there's a multitude of ways that he can reach value. So I love the idea of getting to players like Bruce Brown tonight, like Keldon Johnson for San Antonio, kind of the same situation where it's not like anyone's starting their lineups with Keldon Johnson, but he provides tremendous fantasy production, especially against the weak defense. So I would side with Bruce Brown right now. If Halliburton is ruled out, Buddy Hield could see plenty of shot attempts against Sacramento. So it's Bruce Brown right now. If Halliburton is ruled out, I would have interest in going to Buddy Hield and then getting up to a more expensive guard. That's certainly fine. Grim is asking, how do I feel about Tyus Jones? Love Tyus Jones tonight. He was one of the value plays that I wrote up on numberfire.com as one of my top value plays. He is projected as one of the top value plays overall. Just due to John Morant being out, great game environment, high over-under, both teams in the top 11 of the league in offensive pace. it's not like Brooklyn's been winning games, but it's not like they're super strong on defense. So Tyus Jones and Davion Mitchell are my two favorite value plays at guard tonight. I also have a little bit of interest in going to Joshua Primo for San Antonio. He's $3,500, the minimum salary. He's seen 30-plus minutes in each of the past two games. He's been in the starting lineup each of the past two games. He's not putting up a ton of fantasy points. I get that. But him reaching value at $3,500 is really, really easy to do. I don't expect him to go for 40-plus points. I don't expect him to be like the best value play on the slate, but he can reach value at $3,500. It makes lineup construction easier. It's a great game environment going up against Portland. He's not going to be jumping off the charts in terms of the best value plays tonight, but I still have interest in going to a player like Josh Primo. Get some of that min salary, 30-plus minutes for San Antonio is always nice. That's always an option you can be going to. Seeing lineups that have these two players plus Brunson in there, maybe you swap one of them out to get into Spencer Dinwiddie. That's certainly fine. You want to get Dorian Finney-Smith. That's always an option. We're dealing with tremendous amount of money per player remaining. Even if you wanted to spend up for Kyrie here, you wanted to get to Durant, or you wanted to spend up at center and you wanted to get to Embiid, you still have plenty of salary remaining. You're locking in players that are stepping into the starting lineup like Jones and Mitchell. Brunson's going to see an increased workload because Luka's out. Same thing with Dorian Finney-Smith. He'll see a couple extra touches on the ball, easy matchup against Houston, et cetera, et cetera. So some of these value plays are really, really clear tonight. And it gets even easier. I think Primo is a good value play. I certainly don't think he's a great value play. I'm certainly willing to embrace a little bit more risk considering he's $3,500. And if he does go for 25 FanDuel points, that's certainly a win right there. And he's $3,500, so you can spend up wherever you want. So the guard position tonight, or just both guard positions tonight, offer a tremendous amount of value, which is always great to see. DJ is asking Trey Mann or RJ Hampton. Trey Mann or RJ Hampton. I would certainly side with Trey Mann. Just a coin flip kind of decision. Trey Mann. They're obviously at different salary tiers, which is the question you have to ask. Like if you are Trey Mann, he's point guard. So if he's $6,500, if you're getting the Trey Mann over RJ Hampton, who's $3,800, like where does your lineup change? If you are taking the savings on RJ Hampton, where are you spending that? What is it? $3,500, just under $3,000, $3,800 to $6,500. Like where are you spending that $2,700 difference to upgrade what part of your lineup? I would take Mann for the higher upside. RJ Hampton's been okay in the grand scheme of things. So I would side with Mann in that matchup. It's looking like a great slate. I think we're going to see a ton of scoring tonight. I think we're going to see a ton of high-scoring lineups. Some of the injury news, we do need a few updates on. Larry Nance, okay, that's for tomorrow's slate, ruled out. So the news for tonight, SGA, Cat, Halliburton, I would say are the main three you want to be looking at. We know Fox is doubtful. Randall didn't play last night. Wendell Carter does have a good matchup. If he's going to be out there, I would have interest in Wendell Carter. But SGA, Cat, and Halliburton are the main three injury notes you want to be looking to. Because if SGA is out, it makes Trey Mann that much of a better play in the Trey Mann to RJ Hampton matchup. If Halliburton is out, we could be getting some value with Chris Duarte. We could be seeing Dwayne Washington maybe in the starting lineup if Halliburton is out, but also should offer extra shot attempts for someone like Buddy Hield and Duarte overall. Harden or Curry? Well, Seth Curry for the Nets. He's a game time decision tonight. So I wouldn't be going there. Steph Curry, we know, is out. So Harden, because he's the healthiest among them. Seth Curry, you would want to get that injury update from the Nets because he's been dealing with this ankle issue. All right, so Steph is out. Steph's been out for a couple of games, and he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. So I would say do not roster Steph Curry tonight. Yeah, so that's a pretty clear one. Go with Harden over Steph Curry tonight. All right, so that does it for today's show. We'll be back next Wednesday at 4 p.m. right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Twitter pages. You can follow me on Twitter at DFS_Tom. Until next time, good luck in your contests.